Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Hi, folks. Great to have you here. Broadcast excellence is all yours. Straight ahead the next 3 hours here at the Rush Limbaugh program and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. I told you long ago, folks, I observed long ago, and I got in deep doo-doo for this, too. And I said things you're not supposed to say. And I pointed out these Colin Powell emails in this massive email dump here, the latest from WikiLeaks. I mean, a lot of people think that the email dump contains very damning messages, information, attitudes, opinions about Hillary Clinton from General Powell. But I think there's an overall larger concern, and that is that Colin Powell is primarily interested in maintaining good standing with the people that run the establishment inside the Beltway and in New York, the Boston, New York, Washington corridor, the social status. If you'll notice where all these leaks happen, they happen at parties in the Hamptons. All these comments are made while General Powell is socializing with the elites and the people in the upper stratosphere as they socialize. And that has been his objective from the moment he became prominent in public life. In other words, he's profoundly concerned with what people think of him. A lot of people are. Don't misunderstand. A lot of people are, but General Powell does not have that normally said about him. He is viewed in other ways. I just think you have to understand that if you want to understand how and why General Powell says the things he says about the people he says them. We'll get into this in more detail as the program unfolds. But I want to see if I have something straight here, ladies and gentlemen. We are now being told that Hillary Clinton got pneumonia. Hillary Clinton got pneumonia because a woman has to work harder than a man. Because as a woman, the playing field for her is unlevel. Even at this stage of her career, she's the smartest woman in the world. She's been Secretary of State. She's been First Lady. She's a defeated candidate the first time for the presidency. But even after a 30-year public career, we still have to be treated to Hillary Clinton as basically being cheated against because our culture is rigged, because our society is rigged, because she is a woman. And as such, it just isn't fair. Despite all the progress, it doesn't mean anything because the decks are still stacked against Hillary Clinton. And there are people out there saying she got pneumonia because she's working so hard. Even General Powell in one of the emails talks about, my God, she's working so hard. She's working so hard she could barely climb the steps to the podium. You know how General Powell defined working hard? Going to 3 fundraisers in a day and having to fly to 2 of them. She's just burning at both ends, so she's got to have to slow down. But that's why she's getting pneumonia. She has, now, folks, don't laugh here. I know it sounds humorous, but this is what they're trying to sell. And it will sell to a certain segment of our population. She got sick. She is sick because the nation is structured in an unfair way. The nation is still sexist. The nation is still bigoted. The nation, our culture, our society is still biased. And it doesn't matter that she's the smartest woman in the world. It doesn't matter that she is more competent and more qualified than anybody who's ever been president. It still isn't fair because she has to work so hard just to level the playing field, she's making herself sick for all of us. She got pneumonia for all of us. Well, now, wait a minute. This doesn't kind of wash for me because I remember the first WikiLeaks email dump. And what was that about? It was about how the Democrat National Committee had basically rigged the whole outcome for her. Remember that? This led to Debbie Blabbermouth Schultz having to quit. in the middle of the convention. She had to quit and head home back to Boca because it had been discovered that the Democrat National Committee, as we told you, had structured the Democrat primary so that no matter what happened, Bernie Sanders wasn't going to win anything of consequence. The whole thing was rigged. So how about that unlevel playing field there? It sounds to me like if there was an unlevel playing field in the Democrat primaries, it was victimizing crazy Bernie. And it seems like the unlevel playing field existed and, in fact, was created to benefit Mrs. Clinton. Hillary has had to prove, this is the line they're trying to sell, and it's driving her to illness. And she's doing it for us. They want to change the world. That's the latest thing. Why did the Clintons subject themselves to this torment? Why do they subject themselves to the endless public flogging they get? Why do they subject themselves to the allegations and the accusations? They're a bunch of cheaters and whatever else. Because they want to change the world for us. And we simply do not have what it takes to understand how much they love us and how much they care about us. And how they are willing to get sick. They're willing to contract diseases. They are willing to work harder than anybody's ever had to work in order to make the world better for us. That's what they're trying to sell. So let's see if that holds up. Hillary Clinton has to work harder than Trump. He's a man. We have to work harder than Trump because the deck stacked for Trump because Trump is a man. Is that why she's having so many fewer campaign events than Trump? Is that what working harder than Trump means to level the playing field? Is that why when she does show up at a campaign rally, her speeches are almost so short, if you blink, you miss them? Is this why she never does press conferences? Because she's working so hard to level the playing field? What is she doing? What work is she doing that is so hard she's getting pneumonia for us? She doesn't do campaign appearances very much. When she does, she doesn't speak much at them, and she certainly doesn't do press conferences. In fact, Mrs. Clinton, who's working so hard that she contracted pneumonia for us, practically took the whole month of August off, except for a couple of fundraising dinners. Man, she just, I guess, has run herself ragged trying to prove that she's as tough and has the same stamina as the 70-year-old Donald Trump. Even though she says, I ain't no ways tired. Apparently she's very tired. Apparently she's willing to get tired and pneumonia for us because she wants to make the world a better place. Now, the drive-bys don't seem to have made much notice of this or mention of this. Robbie Mook, who was the Hillary campaign, campaign manager, I guess, he was talking to Jake Tapper on CNN. He said that Hillary's doctor did not catch up with her until she got home to Chappaqua on Sunday after she had that event. She left the 9/11 memorial. She's standing out there waiting for the exit vans to arrive. The vans pull up, and you've all seen the video. Now, she barely made it. They had to shove her in there. She practically collapsed. She looked like she was having a seizure. We made note yesterday that they made an active decision not to take her to a hospital. They didn't take her to an ER because they don't trust the doctors there. They don't trust doctors they don't know. So they willingly subordinated her health to privacy. And then we have Clinton saying, she falls on her face all the time out there. It's not a big deal. She does it frequently. I mean, infrequently. What? Well, the reason why they did that, because we see it, a bunch of times a week. It's no big deal. Trust me, it's not. But everybody else is scratching their heads. This is a serious, serious episode. You would think you go to the hospital. The doctors all think you go to the hospital. Well, Brian, the screensavers just came on in the TV. Again, here, we got these idiot TVs here. I'm about ready to mention a brand name. Why are they going into screensaver? We turned the screensaver off. I've not lost my place here. So she didn't see the doctor till they got home to Chappaqua. She spent, whatever it was, an hour and a half at her daughter's emergency room and apparently revived fully, completely in an hour and a half in there. From dehydration and whatever it was that she had. Whatever was done to revive her at Chelsea's ER has got to be some kind of magic because she didn't see a doctor till they got back to Chappaqua. So here come the various mechanisms the media is using to cover for what obviously is a serious problem. And now the new twist, she's working so hard because she has to, because it's so unfair, because America is so sexist, and the playing field is so unlevel, and she has to do twice the work of a guy just to stay even. And it's driving her to pneumonia and who knows whatever other kind of illness, and she's doing it for us. Now, there is a story here. Where does this run? This runs in this is thehill.com. And I want to read to you the headline here. Democrat apologizes for remarks about Clinton and sex. It wasn't long ago that I would have seen this headline and read this story and concluded that this is just hilarious. And I would have been thinking of various ways to have fun with this. To poke fun, to be creatively hilarious with this, and have people think, wow, this Limbaugh guy is really, really sharp. But I look at it a different way now. Let me give you the details of this story. Former Representative Joe Garcia, Democrat, Florida, apologized yesterday for poorly worded comments he made over the weekend when he said that Hillary Clinton, quote, is under no illusions you want to have sex with her, unquote. So here we have another sensitive, another very much in support of women's rights and women's equality, very much opposed to the bigotry and sexism that supposedly exists in America. Here's a former Democrat representative essentially saying, Hillary, don't worry. She knows there's not a soul in the world wants to have sex with her. And so he has apologized. He said, my comments were intended, get this now, my comments were intended to speak to Secretary Clinton's relentless focus on getting the job done. Yes, nobody wants to have sex with her, and she knows it because she's working so hard, it repels any Don Juans out there. Don Juans don't want women that work real. No way. Don Juans are not interested in hard-working, achieved, accomplished women, and that's what he was trying to say. But he didn't say that. He said Hillary Clinton's under no illusion you want to have sex with her. What in the world would prompt that? He said, my comments were intended to speak Secretary Clinton's relentless focus on getting a job done despite the unjust gender stereotypes and biases that women in public life are frequently subjected to. And I'm with her because I'm confident she'll be one of our country's most effective leaders. And I'm confident she doesn't expect me to want to have sex with her. Now, as I say, wasn't that long ago we'd be yucking it up, and I imagine some of you are. I imagine some of you are imagining if you were sitting where I'm sitting, some of the things you'd say or do. But you, how old is Hillary? 70? She's 69 or 70? She's 69. I have to think that this is probably one of the scariest. I mean, I would bet you if she heard this, I will bet you it really did a lot. It probably made her mad, but I bet it really hurt her feelings. There's nobody wants to think that this is how people see them. Now, look, we have the ugly, and the ugly know who they are. But even them, even they don't consider themselves shut out in this area. And they've demonstrated that they're not shut out. They all have kids. But the idea with women, it's like A woman said to me recently, who just turned 50, and she was what you would consider she was a looker. She was a head turner. She knew it. But she said when she turned 50, she says, nobody notices anymore. Nobody cares. It's just, it's striking. It's as though they know I turned 50. My point is that this is a really cutting comment. This is the kind of thing that a woman Hillary Clinton's age, this is one of the biggest fears that probably men too have about growing old. The libido doesn't suffer. I mean, you young people, you people out there 25 and 30, you're thinking that when you're 65 or 70, you're not going to have any interest whatsoever. You have no idea. It's not going to change, millennials. It isn't going to change an iota. In fact, it's going to get worse because the older you get, the more accomplished you actually think you are, the more attractive you think you are. But this kind of thing with women, this is really, my point is really unkind. This is really insulting. And this is the kind of, if a lot of women hear of this guy's comment, they're going to really, even though he's a liberal Democrat, supposedly sensitive and so forth, is one of the areas you just, you can't win going to. Even though, in this case, it's no doubt true. You just... Okay, polling data up next, and it's continuing to look dicey for the Democrats. What? Oh, yeah, I'm going to get to that. Ivanka's proposal on child care, the new entitlement. Yeah, we're going to get to that. And you don't want to miss it, by the way, when we do get to it. But first off, this is from the Morning Consult poll. Concerns about Hillary Clinton's health abound. You know how Drudge's has linked to this? You know what Drudge's headline is? Sorry. 30% believe Clinton will die by 2020. That's in the poll. It's just not how it's headlined by the Morning Consult people. Their headline is, Concerns about Hillary Clinton's health abound, poll shows. Following a caught-on-camera health scare over the weekend, a new Morning Consult survey reveals widespread concerns about her health among registered voters. The poll taken September 12th and 13th shows that 8 in 10, about 80%, said that they have heard a lot or have heard some about Clinton's health concerns. That's a high figure. That's higher than I thought it was going to be. And that is a testament to the reach of this program. It's a testament to the reach of social media. The drive-bys are doing a great job in misdirection when it comes to reporting on Hillary. They're doing a great job. They're not covering hardly any of the negatives, and yet they're getting out there. The negatives are getting out there. And one of the reasons the negatives are getting out there, and this is also part of the polling data, we touched briefly on it yesterday, Hillary is having big trouble coalescing the Obama coalition. There are a significant number of Obama supporters that are just not into Hillary. And the polling data is showing all of this. 80% say they've heard about Clinton's health concerns. That's bad news to the drive-bys, trying to prevent this very thing from happening. It's a huge figure. 9 in 10 said they'd heard some or a lot about Clinton's use of a private email server as well. Here's a quick timeout coming, but we'll continue. Pick up the place right here. Okay, so in the Morning Consult poll taken yesterday and the day before, 80% say they've heard a lot or some about Hillary's health concerns. That's not good from Hillary's standpoint, nor is it good from the drive-by media, who've been trying to misdirect everybody away from it, or trying to say it isn't a big deal. Or trying to say, hey, yeah, she's sick, but she's doing it for you. She's working so hard for you. Yeah. That also is revealed. It is also revealed that 90% in the Morning Consult poll had heard a lot or some about Clinton's use of a private email server. And that story doesn't go away. I have to tell you where I am on this. And this, like you, you got to fight through this stuff each and every day. How long has this email story been intense? At least since March of 2015. And yet, every day there's something new. that comes out that makes it even worse. And every time I see one of these stories, I'm tempted to throw up my hands and toss it away because how many people really care about this anymore? Because there hasn't been any outcome from it. Nobody's been punished. Nobody's been called to action for anything. I mean, just the stories are more and more information about what she did. But then you look at the polling data on her, and you see that it has to be making a difference, having some kind of impact. Her untrustworthy numbers are way up. Her negatives are sky high. And it's to the point now when you look at commentators on TV talking about the race, how often do you hear them say, yeah, you know what, the American people really don't like either of these two. It's a really sad thing. We're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Why couldn't we have found somebody that everybody respected or liked? Well, that's a question for another day. But the point is that despite the best efforts of the drive-by media, they have not been able to protect her. They have apparently all of this news, this dribble, drip, drip, drip on the emails and on the server. Apparently, even though I don't think too many people have a real specific knowledge of what went on, and I don't think a lot of people even get what the real problem is beyond this is just not how you're supposed to do it. But it's so deep in the weeds talking about classified data, sending classified secrets in an insecure way. I think it goes over a lot of people's heads because they don't see any damage that's resulted from it. But we don't know that there hasn't been any. How about all these terror attacks? How about all of the things that just seem to be going wrong for this country elsewhere around the world? Who knows? It may have a significant impact. Regardless, it apparently is having an overall impact in people's impression of her. Her negatives have never been this high. Now, and they've never been off the charts positive either. She's never been a typical Democrat presidential candidate, loved, respected. She's never had that kind of public image. But this is bad. So all of these things are obviously having some kind of impact. And now if you look in the election polls, here Trump in some of these battlegrounds, like Ohio, is up 5 points in a legitimate poll. This got everybody shocked. And now there are stories about how the Democrats who were practically making plans for retaking the Senate. Here's this headline, the AP. And I guarantee you they're white-knuckled right now. Look at the AP. It bamboozled here. Democrats fear their Senate takeover chances dimming. How can that be? They've been measuring the curtains for the Oval Office for how many months now? They've been thinking that's over. They've been thinking Trump is so bad, everybody hates Trump so much that they're going to take the Senate, maybe even the House. All of these things in their minds attitudinally have been a fait accompli. And now from the AP, Democrats are sounding increasingly concerned about their chances of retaking the Senate as Republicans demonstrate a commanding fundraising advantage and Hillary Clinton's lead narrows in key battleground states. There's also something else happening out there that's got them bamboozled on the left, and that is Republican voter registration is apparently skyrocketing. None of this was expected. In fact, none of what Donald Trump has accomplished was expected from the day he announced. The establishment types and the elites continue to this day to tell themselves that Trump is going to implode. Now, and some of them think that he already has and is hanging on by a shoestring. Some think that a major implosion is yet to happen. But they've all but concluded Trump is going to eliminate himself simply because he's such a boob. He's so incompetent. He's such a bad candidate. Now they're even calling him a fatty. You know, that's enough that drive-bys have decided. One of the ways to misdirect people away from the stories on Hillary's health care is to start examining the health consequences of Donald Trump being overweight. It has now become almost a talking point. And all of this is reactionary because none of this is playing out the way they thought it was, or going to. None of it is. How many stories have we had in the past week headlined with something like Democrats scratching heads over why Hillary hasn't already closed this down? Why hasn't Hillary already locked this up? They don't understand why she's not at 70% and Trump's at 30%. They don't understand. They really thought that this was over even before the Democrat convention, but certainly in the week after, they thought it was over. And now, none of this is making any sense to them. So the Republicans are increasing their fundraising, defying odds. The Republicans are running away with new voter registration. That's defying all kinds of odds and predictions. Although most Democrats still express confidence that they will win back the Senate in November, they now appear to have fewer paths to victory, as wins in Ohio and even Florida look increasingly remote. Well, how can that be? What in the world could be causing them trouble in Florida and Ohio? And if they do win back control, says a hopeful Associated Press, it could end up being with the narrowest of margins. Even a 50-50 Senate with a Vice President Tim Kaine casting tie-breaking votes for the Democrats if Hillary Clinton becomes president. That's what it's come down to. That's what they're now hoping for, that maybe we can at least get 50-50 and have Kaine in there as the deciding vote. And a key factor in all this is, again defying odds, the Republican money edge, which is particularly pronounced this year because some major donors have decided to stay out of the presidential race because they don't like Trump and are pouring money into Senate races instead. This would be the evil Koch brothers. The Democrats thought they had dispatched with the Koch brothers when the Koch brothers said they were going to give to Trump. That the Koch brothers is going to go away and not play in this cycle. But then again, I might have known it would come down to being the Koch brothers' fault. I mean, when the Democrats can't explain why people reject them, it has to be some big Republican money people. And the Koch brothers fill that bill. Another concern, the AP says, is Hillary's weak performance as a candidate, particularly pronounced over the past days as her campaign contended with questions over its handling of her health. Her stumbling exit, that's how they referred the incident on Sunday. The seizure, where she had to be thrown in the van, they refer to it here as her stumbling exit, was followed by the disclosure that she had been diagnosed with pneumonia. The New York Times today is saying she just lost her balance. Yep, that's all that happened. She lost her balance. She's getting off the curb, walking off the curb. She had a problem with the shoe. Shoe came off, lost her balance, and thankfully a couple of aides were there to make sure she didn't topple over. But there was nothing to see here. She just lost her balance. Then accompanying story from the AP again, very grim. GOP gains ground on Democrats in voter registration in key states. Republicans have gained ground on the Democrats in registering voters in 3 battleground states, and they've kept their razor-thin advantage in Iowa. Encouraging news for Trump 8 weeks before Election Day. Republicans added hundreds of thousands of voters to the rolls since 2012 in states including Florida, Arizona. Now, what could explain this? Normally, when we talk about 2012, what do we hear? We hear how many Republicans stayed home. We hear how many, anywhere from 2 to 4 million didn't vote. And we hear that had they voted, Romney would have won, but they didn't show up. Now, they want us to believe that it's this much. We're talking registration. Now, I'm going to tell you, starting with Robert Costa in the Washington Post talking to Charlie Rose, there are a number of people on the left who are really worried that what is happening is that a large percentage of Trump support is coming from people who are not registered to vote, who are not recent voters. They're people who believe the political system abandoned them years ago, and they don't trust any of it, and they don't participate in it. Trump has come along. If this rapidly increasing Republican voter registration, and I'm not sure, nobody is yet, but if this new wave of Republican voter registration is coming from that group of people, the 50% of the people that don't vote, there's a lot of them. You've got 70% of people think country's in the wrong track, 50% of the population that's eligible doesn't vote. If this new Republican registration is coming from that group, and there are people inside various organizations who know it, I guarantee you that they're quaking in fear over that as well. We'll just have to see. Time will tell. Look, here you go is another headline, and this is from Bloomberg.com. Nervous Democrats fret about Clinton stumbles as race tightens 8 weeks from Election Day. Democrats are feeling queasy about Hillary Clinton's narrowing national and battleground state lead over Donald Trump, despite the fact she's working so hard she's getting pneumonia for us, folks. She's working so hard, she is making herself perhaps mortally ill for us to change the world, to make it a better place. And despite all of that, the Democrats are fretting about her stumbles. A race some had considered a layup for Clinton on Tuesday showed Trump within 2.5 points in the Real Clear Politics average of polls. Her stumbles over the weekend from a botched response to a health incident. What do you mean a botched response to a health incident? What about the health incident itself? See, this is how the media misses this stuff. Okay, so Hillary has a disastrous display of bad health. And the media fixation, well, how did they deal with it? How did they respond to it? How was the spin? They didn't deal with it very well. What can you do with that? What in the world can you do with what everybody saw? You can't lie about it with any credibility. I mean, they're Democrats. They can try to lie about it. So they're worried that she stumbled with her botched response to the incident. And then they're worried that she's running out there calling Trump's voters a basket of deplorables, and that this has somehow heightened concerns that she's just not making this happen. By the way, we had near iPhone-type sales figures with our I'm a Deplorable T-shirt. My gosh, the first day sales at rushlimbaugh.com, right there in the EIB store, as part of the Never Hillary collection. Just added these T-shirts yesterday. This is the fastest turnaround since I've been doing this program. You know how I did it? I eliminated a 14-step test market. I knew what I wanted. I ordered it done. Coco got it done. We turned it around in one day. The T-shirts are in there. The EIB store, Hillary Clinton collection at rushlimbaugh.com. Say, I am a Hillary deplorable on the front and Never Hillary on the back. Let me grab a call here in the first hour. Always try. This is Sean in Advance, North Carolina. Great to have you, sir. Hello.
Hi, Rush. It's great to speak with you. Thank you for your time.
You bet,
Listen,
sir.
I wanted to propose that I think James Comey knew that an Obama administration would not indict Hillary. Therefore, his only potential out would be to pass on his own recommendation, knowing that if Obama can't exonerate Hillary for something she's not even indicted for, that there's the possibility that a Trump presidency could. What are your thoughts, sir?
Well, I think this, and I think you're somewhat close. What we saw with Comey is in that process we never see. If the FBI either recommends or doesn't after an investigation, see, they can't arrest anybody. Well, they can't indict anybody. The DOJ has to do that. And they have to convene a grand jury, or they just directly charge. The FBI does investigation and make recommendations. We never see it. That's what was standout about this. Comey, even though he's going to recommend no charges, nevertheless read the indictment. In his press conference, he detailed every illegality she engaged in that they could find. But he mitigated it. He said, we couldn't find any intent, and therefore we are recommending no charges. Now, as I say, we never see the results of an investigation that is not pursued. And this is an investigation not pursued. They shut it down. So Comey goes on TV and tells everybody what she did. And then says, but We couldn't find any intent. Therefore, no reasonable prosecutor would ever pursue this. Well, he's got a job. He's got a job to protect. He knows, like you say, DOJ not going to pursue no matter what he recommends. They're not going to indict her no matter what he recommends. So he stays on their good side by calling them responsible prosecutors, reasonable prosecutors, and acknowledging that nobody would charge her. So he puts it out there, and it becomes something where the voters are the jury, and therefore it's up to the Trump campaign and whatever media that want to get involved to make the case. Comey has spelled it out, mentioned all the times that she had not been forthcoming, all the times she'd lied. She didn't lie to them in her interview, but all the other things that have been lied about. So he made a good case. That's why everybody's scratching their heads. You mean you had all of this and you're recommending she not be charged? And the reason for that, I'm totally convinced he doesn't want to be the guy in American history who took out the duly nominated, pardon me, crazy Bernie, Democrat candidate for president. That's just, he didn't want to go there. So, and knew they weren't going to indict. That's looking at it as a favorable light as possible. Now, you think that Trump might come along and indict her if he becomes elected. I don't think they'll look backward and do that. Okay, the Colin Powell leaks in the email dump coming up, as well as Ivanka and Donald Trump's support on a new entitlement for child care that a number of people are having a cow over. All that and more straight ahead. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day, Rush Limbaugh, and the nation's most listened to radio talk show, the most talked about host of the most listened to show in the country. Now into our 29th year, the EIB World Service. 800-282-2882 is our phone number. And if you want to send an email, I check them, as you know. We have a new email address. It's lrushbo@eibnet.us. lrushbo@eibnet.us. And just to reiterate, we did manage a very quick turnaround on the brand new addition to the Hillary Clinton T-shirt line at the EIB store at rushlimbaugh.com. These are the deplorable T-shirts. These are... they're blue, just like the Never Hillary T-shirts are. On the front, they say, I am a Hillary deplorable. And on the back, it says Never Hillary. And we turn these around literally in a day and a half. And one of the reasons that we don't do more of this, and I must admit, people say, well, you could do a lot more of this than you do. And I said, well, there's two reasons. I really don't like, what's the word? It's not exploit. But I don't want to constantly be coming at you with things that we have for sale. We do it on a limited basis when I know there is going to be this crazy demand, and this is one of those examples. Another reason we don't do it is because normally when we get an idea, it's a great idea, it takes 2 weeks before we even get a prototype, particularly if it's something other than a T-shirt. By 2 weeks... the passion's gone. Everybody's on to something else. So we were able to turn these around in one day because we already had the template for the Never Hillary T-shirts ready to go. So it was easy to change screen process. So they're up and they're available. You'll find them in the Hillary Clinton collection at the EIB store at rushlimbaugh.com, right there at the top of the page. Okay, the latest WikiLeaks document dump features emails of General Colin Powell and Secretary Colin Powell weighing in on aspects of Hillary Clinton. The UK Daily Mail has a story, and it's headlined, Hillary Clinton hates President Obama for defeating her in 2008, according to Colin Powell's leaked emails, and was so sick giving a speech she could barely walk up steps. So, according to General Powell, Hillary Clinton is sick, she is tired, she hates Obama because he beat her in 2008. And I have no doubt about that. I think it goes deeper than that. You have to go back to 2008. You have to relive what 2008 was supposed to be what's happening this year. There wasn't supposed to be an Obama. There wasn't supposed to be anybody come along that could seriously compete. It was hers. She had been guaranteed. She'd been promised. She'd been told, 2008, it's yours. That's when we're paying you back for everything you've done to help us with whatever she did, keeping her husband alive and all those things by not leaving him. And then Obama surfaced, and it was so clear, so obvious that a majority of Democrats wanted him and not her. That had to be such a blow. In her mind, she has single-handedly saved the Democrat Party by standing by her husband. And it's more than that. She thinks she's single-handedly saved the party because she's the smartest woman in the world and therefore in the party. And to be thrown overboard like that for a young, what did Biden say, clean and articulate black guy? Biden, that's what he said, right? So to be overthrown by a clean, that really ticked off Al Sharpton, and he takes showers too. A clean and articulate black guy. And when it was hers, she felt betrayed. She finally found out what some in the Democrat Party really think of her. And then Obama came along and was 10 times as dazzling and exciting and thrilling and attractive as she has ever been. And this is an ego business. And I will guarantee you that hurt and it ticked her off. She probably experienced a gamut of emotions. So I'm not surprised when I see Colin Powell writing how she hated Obama, but I think it's for far more than just that she lost to him. It goes deeper than that. Now I know then you'll say, but Rush, I've heard this, I've heard it from you, I've heard from... Then why did she accept Secretary of State? And if Obama hates her and she hates Obama, then why did Obama go to the convention and say everything he said about her being more qualified than anybody ever has been? Well, that's a different world those people live in. And the one thing that has to survive and triumph at all times is the ideology, liberalism. The Democrat Party must always win no matter what. They're not like the Republicans that are willing to sell the party out on what they say is principle or what. Democrats ain't no way they're losing no matter what. And if there's bad blood between Hillary and Obama, they're going to deal with that behind the doors and we'll never see it. It'll be dealt with. Or a huge price will be extracted. Hillary, you want me to go out there and say what everybody knows is not true? How good you are? Oh, let me tell you what it's going to cost you, babe. Stuff like this that we're never privy to. And since we're talking about the Clintons, who knows what they've got on people? I mean, these are the people of 500 FBI files. This is different air they breathe, folks. This is rarefied air when you get to that level of a group that is really so tiny as the quote-unquote establishment. And they are into self-preservation. That's why they're all aligning, Republicans and Democrats together, to try to keep Trump out of there. Worst thing that could happen. That's why, if you're wondering why you hear Republicans really embracing the idea of a Hillary win, that's what it's all about. It's about maintaining the club, about maintaining the establishment, this tiny but exclusive and very powerful group of people. And they deal with each other in their own ways, in ways where they need to be reciprocal, pay people back, take people out. There are ways of doing that behind the scenes that don't take place in public that we probably might not see. But the bad blood, people are saying, oh, Colin Powell says she hates Obama, but it doesn't jive with the way they look and talk about each other. No, it could. They could still harbor great dislike for each other and distrust. And don't forget the Trump factor. If any of the other Republican candidates had been nominated instead of Trump, then Obama might not have been so cautious in protecting Hillary. If somebody from the Republican establishment's going to get elected, why, Obama's going to know that preserving the establishment will take place. But with Trump, he can't roll the dice. He can't. If he doesn't want Hillary to win, Trump changes everything. Because the last thing they want is for Trump to win this. Jeb be okay. Kasich could be okay. I would say Trump and Cruz were the two that no matter what would never be allowed to happen. The Democrats will bury whatever hatchets they have for each other to stop either Trump or Cruz. But any of the, Rubio, I don't know. There might have been a third. Bottom line is Trump winning a nomination changed everything. It almost forces Obama and the Clintons to get along. Whereas in other circumstances, there might have been a little less comity. So it just makes these emails from Colin Powell all the more interesting because I don't doubt them at all. She's sick, she's tired, and she hates Obama. She hates Obama's economy. She hates half of Trump's supporters. She hates transparency. But she loves throwing Colin Powell under the bus. A wealthy private equity investor told former Secretary of State Colin Powell that Hillary Clinton hates Obama in newly leaked emails between the two men, leaked by DC Leaks and obtained by The Intercept. Jeffrey Leeds wrote to Powell in one email, which was posted on Twitter by somebody named Lee Fang, that all Clinton wants is to win the upcoming election. She might not win in the end. He then went on to say, it's the one thing she wants. She's got everything else. She hates the president, that man, as the Clintons call him. Apparently, the Clintons don't even refer to Obama by name. They call him that man. She hates the president. This is from the emails now. She hates the president, that man who kicked her butt in 2008. She can't believe it. She can't accept it. In another March 2015 email exchange between the two men, they talk about Clinton's health, with this guy Jeffrey Leeds stating that Rhode Island Senator Sheldon Whitehouse informed him that she could barely climb the podium steps when the two gave a speech at the same event. Leeds also wrote to Powell about other problems he believed Clinton would be facing in the upcoming election. No one likes her. The criminal thing ain't over, Jeffrey Leeds wrote to Powell. No one likes her. The criminal thing ain't over. I don't think the president would weep if she found herself in real legal trouble. She will pummel his legacy if she gets a chance, and he knows it. See, folks, I'm here to tell you none of this surprises me. Everything you're seeing in public, Obama and Hillary apparently lovey-dovey, mutual respect, that's bogus. That's the kind of thing they have to do. This behind-the-scenes stuff, I guarantee you it's real. And I think Obama would be concerned about any new president and his legacy. But look it, all Obama has to do is listen to what Hillary's saying on the campaign trail. Nobody can miss this. I'm surprised that if I were in the Trump campaign, I'd be making a much bigger deal of this. Hillary Clinton's whole campaign is rooted largely in how these last 8 years need to be vastly improved upon. Hillary Clinton is indicting the 8 years of the Obama administration by virtue of the way she's campaigning. Don't believe Obama doesn't know it. So you're asking me, well then, Rush, why'd Obama go out and campaign for her in Philadelphia? He wasn't campaigning for her, I hate to tell you. Obama was getting back in the light. Look it, he's lame duck now. He's not the focus. Obama is not the focus. Hillary and Trump are the focus. They're the future. Obama, lame duck, soon to be lame duck. He went out there. He mentioned himself 137 times in a campaign appearance ostensibly for Hillary Clinton. Now, the public impression is they're trying to, he loves stepping in for her. He absolutely loves helping her out. She can't go. She can't get out of bed. She can't leave Chappaqua because of pneumonia. He's happy to go help, but he's doing it for him. He is doing that, all of these things for him, to buttress his legacy. He knows that she's out, If you listen to what she's saying, she's indicting the last Obama years, 8 years, particularly the economy. So everything is not hunky-dory and sweetness and light. However, these people on the left have the ability to unify when it comes to beating us. That is their number one objective. That's how they maintain their position, their leadership in the establishment. That's how they maintain the establishment in control of the country. They have no problem unifying to defeat us. We do not have that talent. We don't have that. That's not part of the Republican or conservative existence, and it's on display right here. We will not unify to defeat them. They will. They will, for a campaign, for a few months, they will set aside every beef and disagreement they've got and unify against us as the enemy. We don't have that capacity for some inexplicable reason. Inexplicable. Even now, we have people on our side trying to make their bones, trying to say, I'm above it all. I have no problem voting for Hillary Clinton. You won't find a single Democrat, elected or former, who will go public and say is voting Trump. Never. They will not. They do not do that to themselves. We do all the time. But underneath all that, there isn't all this sweetness and light and love. Not that it matters, because they will unify to beat us, because they consider us the number one threat to their way of life, to their power base and their secure hold over it. We are engaged in intramural, internecine fighting. They aren't. Not during campaigns, not during elections. They unified around McGovern. They unified around Mondale. They unified around Jimmy Carter. They do not sell each other out when it comes to defeating us. Now, when it's just them, look what they did to Crazy Bernie. When it's just them, they'll take each other out, but they'll come together when it comes to beating us. So that's why when you see these Powell emails and you see all this, well, he really didn't like her. She didn't like him. And she didn't like Obama. Yeah, don't doubt that it's true. But they have the ability to set it aside when we are involved. And we are involved as opponents in this election. Be right back. Welcome back, my friends. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair every day. And always. Here's Marie, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Glad you waited. You're next. Great to have you. Hi.
Well, it's such an honor to speak with you, Rush. I've listened to you forever, long before Maria Linda.
Long before Rio Linda.
Rio Linda in California that you were talking about.
Oh, my gosh, you do. You go back like to the mid-'80s then.
Yes, I do. I'm an older lady, and I'm afraid I feel that this country is just about hopeless. I don't think people realize what a lawless country it has become with the standards, I think, on the Democrat Party especially, but a lot of the American people have been so lowered and so dumbed down, they don't even expect anything anymore, and they don't care if somebody lies. That's okay, as long as they're a member of the Democrat Party. But with Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, the highest law officer in the country, selling her soul to the Clintons, and Jim Comey, FBI director of all things, who laid out a plan that should have indicted Hillary, but he didn't. And I just think it's almost hopeless.
Well, wait a minute. Let me on this Comey business. I just want to make sure. Comey can't indict anybody. All he can do is present the results of his investigation and recommend. And his recommendation doesn't have to be followed. He knew she wasn't going to indict Hillary Clinton. He knew that Loretta Lynch wasn't going to. That's why he went public. I think he did what he could to make known everything his investigation uncovered.
But there was one more thing. I thought, now I understand why Hillary failed so miserably at Benghazi. As Secretary of State, she was so busy doing the pay and play. I think she just blew it off. a lot of it, even though she knew it. She was aware of some of it, and it was her fault that everything happened. But I think she was too busy with pay and play. It takes a lot of time to set up those.
I don't. I don't think that's it at all. I think what happened at Benghazi is far worse than that. I don't think that she was occupied doing it. They knew what was going on. They actively decided to ignore what was going on and try to capitalize on it politically rather than have it hurt them politically. So they had to totally change the story, the narrative about it. It became this poor slob that made a video that caused everything. But it's even worse than that as far as Benghazi. Anyway, appreciate the call. Marie will be back and I'll expand on this when we get back. Okay, look, just a couple of things here. First, back to Comey. Comey lays out the case. Then he recommends no indictment because he says no reasonable prosecutor would indict. Well, that's where people, wait, why'd you lay it out then? What he could have done is lay it out as he did and then say, we are recommending that charges be pursued, knowing full well they would not have been pursued. That would have put Loretta Lynch on the spot. Comey didn't want to put her on the spot. That's not where he wanted to end up in all this. If the decision to indict were his, I think he would have made it. But at some point, self-preservation enters the scene, and his perception of reality being, look, there isn't anybody else here that's going to take out the Democrat nominee using the legal system. I'll be damned if I'm going to be the guy who does it. I don't want to be the one guy in the history books known for this. So he didn't want to go there. So I think he rolls the dice, and he tries to do two things at the same time. List everything he thinks that she did that is bad, wrong, all the lies, all the violations. And then, but we're not recommending, because he knew there wasn't going to be an indictment. So he stays on the good side of the DOJ and Lynch and Obama, by the way, while documenting the case. He could have recommended an indictment. And that would have, that fireworks would have, because there would not have been an indictment. And that would have turned the focus on Lynch and the DOJ and kept the focus on Comey. Why did you do this? Why did you do it? No FBI director ever does this publicly, and that would have been true. So they would accuse him of partisan political behavior and supposedly nonpartisan FBI director. I mean, there was no other way this was going to go. And I think he did as much as he could to facilitate those who wanted to make a case against her politically by documenting the case. That never happens, folks. If the FBI investigates and finds nothing prosecutable, we never hear it. They give the results, the indication to the assistant prosecutor over the U.S. Attorney's Office or the U.S. Attorney, him or herself, and it's done. And we never hear about it. The only time we hear of this is if the decision is made to indict, to charge. Then we have the details of the investigation leaked out. Prosecutors are really, really good at that by trying to factor jury decisions in advance and influencing juries and the public impression of the person to be accused or indicted. But in this case, that wasn't going to happen. So Comey did as much as he could. A lot of people still have a problem with it. Principle's principle. No matter what happens to you, you do the right thing. And that's the reputation, the kind of guy he supposedly was. Now, on Benghazi, I don't think that this is a mystery. The Democrats, the Obama administration, I don't think was prepared at all for what happened. And as such, they had no contingency. And when it did happen, their instincts are one thing, self-preservation, political self-preservation. And that's what they got in gear to secure their political self-preservation. It wasn't that Hillary was too busy selling access and all of that. In fact, it may even be worse than I think, because if you go to Cairo the same day where our embassy is, don't forget, we issued an apology before anything had happened. And it turns out that we had intel that there was going to potentially be a terror attack in Benghazi or on the embassy in Cairo. The decision had to have been made at some point that if that happened, we were not going to react to it because Obama's election was coming up in 8 weeks, and there wasn't going to be anything that made it look like we were re-entering a new war. Not after these people made their bones opposing Iraq. They got elected lying about Iraq. They got elected and stayed in power, and their personal approval numbers stayed high by continuing to lie about Iraq. The last thing they were going to permit to happen was a war breakout anywhere in the Middle East, but much less Libya, which at that point was a Hillary Clinton success story. Her policy had gotten rid of Gaddafi, don't forget. That was the story they were running with. Now, to have everything go to hell over there, that just wouldn't do. They just weren't going to permit that. And there was some other mission going on. There's a reason Stevens, the ambassador, was sent over there during this time frame that had nothing to do with diplomacy in Libya. I'm convinced it had to do with whatever our policy and strategery in Syria, of all places, is. So when it blows up, they scuttle around. They had a list of potential explanations ready to go, and there it was. Nakula al-Nakula, this pathetic little filmmaker that nobody had ever heard of, became the villain. In fact, there's a story about this guy in the news today about how he's homeless and wandering aimless and doesn't know who he is anymore. He was arrested. He was imprisoned. He has been destroyed by this administration after having used him as the fall guy for what all happened in Benghazi. They didn't do anything about it because they put their own political futures ahead of security for people on the ground in Benghazi. It's no more complicated than that. And then when it all went to hell, they had to hustle, get in gear, and construct a story that blamed everybody but them. They knew they would have media support, and they were able to pull this off for enough time so there was no damage to them in the 2012 election. The thing that you need to know about Benghazi is Hillary, Obama, whoever, they didn't care enough to even allow defensive forces or retaliatory forces to be sent to Benghazi. They didn't care enough. Anything of the sort, any American involvement. That's why if you've seen the movie 13 Hours, they make a big deal of the fact that there were many requests for help during the entire ordeal. And at no time was it coming because it was made clear that the administration, United States, the State Department did not want to do anything to make it look like a war had broken out. They wanted to do everything they could to make it look like this was a random terror attack taking place on the anniversary of 9/11. That was nothing more than that. And they couldn't do that if they fired back. If they sent additional forces, if they sent helicopters, if they did flyovers, if they dropped a few bombs, that would be retaliating. That's escalating. They weren't going to go there, no matter what, because they had made their bones stopping that kind of stupidity, as in Iraq. Now, one of the points that she made, and it's fascinating, depending on who you talk to, if you talk to young people, obviously their attitudes on where our culture is and from where it has come and how far its descent is going to differ from somebody who is her age. And she's got to be 7. She's been listening to this program since I was in Sacramento in 1984, because that'd be pre-Rio Linda days. I mean, even in 1984, I had not heard of Rio Linda for 6 months till I did a drive around out there and I saw the place and said, whoa. But that's another story. a classic of what she's talking about, a great example of what she's talking about. She's talking about people lie, there's no consequence, there seems to be no respect for the rule of law. Somebody her age, it's abundantly clear that we have deteriorated greatly. Yesterday, there was another congressional hearing over Hillary's emails, and it was run by Jason Chaffetz. And a bunch of Hillary support people, actual tech people, refused to testify. One of them didn't even show up after having been subpoenaed. He just blew them off. That does not happen. Nobody tells a House committee, a Senate committee, after they've been subpoenaed. Nobody tells a judge. Nobody tells a court, you, and live to tell about it without being cited in contempt, for contempt or what have you. These people were taking the fifth. These people were not answering any questions. They did tell some falsehoods and some lies, and one guy just refused to even answer the subpoena. It got so bad that Jason Chaffetz even served a subpoena during the hearing itself yesterday. Now, since the media is aligned with the Democrats, that is a non-story. In fact, the coverage of that story is almost applause for the people who thumbed their nose at the Chaffetz committee. It's a striking example. You don't have to go back very many years where you could say without a shadow of a doubt that just wouldn't happen. And if it had, there would have been universal condemnation for whoever had refused the subpoena, who did not show up, or for people who were taking the fifth or behaving the way these people were. They were I don't know if you'd call it being disrespectful or whatever, but it's a marked deterioration. There is a steady decline in respect for a whole host of institutions and traditions that people used to rely on that kept everything together. Rule of law, things that were the glue that kept the culture and the society roiling and going forward. Not roiling, but together and going forward. And everybody now, or not, but so many people now just spit on it or ignore it or what have you, because nothing that anybody does ends up shaming anybody anymore. Celebrity is such that the more outrageous you are, the more attention you get, which means the more interest people will have in you. There are exceptions to that, of course. If you happen to be a Republican, you can be shamed. The media will take care of it. But, I mean, in general, there is a great deterioration. But to a young person who doesn't know of these great traditions and has no knowledge, they haven't been taught, they certainly didn't live through any of it, nothing's that odd. In fact, it's par for the course. Somebody tells you to do something you don't want to do, screw you. I have my rights. You can't make me show up if I don't want to. Who do you think you are? Anyway, a brief time out. We have a call coming up. I'm going to use the call as the transition into the Ivanka-Donald Trump proposal, their new entitlement on child care. This is going to be a good test, I think, for a lot of Trump supporters. We'll be back after this. Don't go away. Also coming up, CNN today has been obsessed with Donald Trump's appearance on the Dr. Oz show. You know who Dr. Oz is. Dr. Mehmet Oz. He's from the Oprah tree, and he apparently was doing a story on Trump's health. The drive-bys are just beside themselves trying to change the narrative from Hillary's bad health and whatever is wrong with her to Trump being a fat slob and lying about his health. So Trump appears on the Dr. Oz show today after having visited his doctor, and he was going to present the results of his examination from his doctor to Dr. Oz. Dr. Oz was then going to question Trump about his health and his physical from the doctor. And it was supposed to be, CNN was hoping that there was going to be something happen or something there to indicate that Trump has something wrong, but that he's hiding it or is not reporting it or what have you. And they were leaning on Dr. Oz to really ask tough questions. And Dr. Oz said, that's not what this is going to be. I'm not going to be going in there to try to embarrass Trump It's up to Trump what he wants to announce, and they had some audience members in there that they were hoping would not believe what Trump said, and CNN had a lot invested. Wolf Blitzer could not let the subject go. And we've got audio sound bites coming up demonstrating how it backfired on them to an extent. So that we'll get to that in the next hour. Here's Richard in Lee Summit, Missouri, outside Kansas City. Great to have you, sir. I'm glad you waited. Hi.
Hey, Rush. Proud Navy dad dittos to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Same to you.
Hey, a lot of purist conservatives have started to criticize Trump's proposed incentives for child care and paid leave for the parents. And before they get too all bothered about that, I want them to consider that Trump's proposals for child care and maternity leave, that promotes and strengthens the family that we're always talking about being so important. And it by making it easier on the parents to have paid time off and child care costs and tax-free savings accounts that they can roll over for college, all that just builds the family. And it's something we need to consider if we're talking about the family being so important. We can invest in families that need help up to a certain extent where he's going to put the cutoffs and everything. But I think that would just really go so far in helping rebuild our society's fabric.
So to summarize, I'll ask you a question. You are not at all concerned about the nature and the substance of Trump's entitlement, his new entitlement proposal to use government money to shore up the family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fiscal conservative, and I'm voting for Trump, and but I think that we spend so much money on studies and research and grants and things like that. We can invest in the family, the fabric of society.
See, here's this. Okay, Richard, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. There's ideology, and there's politics, and sometimes they intersect. Sometimes ideology and politics come together, and it's a beautiful thing. Sometimes the ideology guides the politics. Other times, the politics and the ideology may get close, but they don't intersect. Which is what we have here. We have Trump, via his daughter's op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today, advocating a new child care and family policy using the federal government, which is not conservative ideologically. But neither was George W. Bush's Medicare Part B. And a lot of conservatives got mad at that, too, at the same time. But this episode has given ammo to all the conservatives who have been opposed to Trump from the beginning, who've been saying, you guys, you're falling for this. Guy's not one of us. He's not a conservative. He's a big government guy, and you are going to get fooled. And now they're saying, see, we told you, with this proposal. But a lot of Trump supporters aren't going to care because the ideology and the politics, they don't meet up here. They don't care. No, of course I got more on this healthcare business. They're just wetting your whistle for it, folks. Also this, Trump is now ahead in Colorado. It was just a month ago that Hillary stopped running ads there. Democrats thought it was in the bag. They didn't want to waste any money. And Trump's now pulled ahead there. I remember, folks, it was August 4th. It was August 4th. That we were told that Hillary Clinton was so far ahead in Colorado that they had stopped running ads. They had something like a 12 to 15 point lead. It was over in Colorado. They were pulling their money out of there. The Democrats were. They weren't going to spend it and not going to waste it. Colorado was in the bag. Trump has pulled ahead in Colorado. Republican voter registration outpacing Democrat voter registration. Stories all over the place about how one of the main constituent groups supporting Obama is not excited about Hillary. The Obama coalition, she needs it. Not just the African-American aspect. She needs all of the Obama coalition to show up as they did for Obama. And there's a couple of groups in that coalition that are lukewarm to her. They're not at all into her. I mean, these stories are all over the place. Democrats concerned that Hillary's not up 70-30, 60-40. Democrats concerned that Trump's still viable. Democrats concerned that Hillary can't put Trump away. Democrats concerned that Hillary can't stand up for more than 5 minutes at a time. Democrats concerned that Hillary's collapsing. Democrats concerned here. Democrats concerned there. It's all over the place. And I remember when this Colorado news hit, I remember not believing it. And I can't tell you why. It wasn't that long ago. I mean, it was just a little over a month ago. And maybe it was my instincts or something. I said, nothing's over on August 4th. I mean, maybe New York and maybe California, but something instinctively told me that this is going to come back and bite them. It's not just that they had declared it over. They publicly made a big deal out of pulling their money out of Colorado and so forth. So this is not going the direction they thought. It's not going the direction a lot of people thought on all sides of this. But I want to tell you, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised by any of this, folks. And I mean, it's easy to sit here today and say that. If I were surprised, I would tell you, but I'm not. And I'm not going to be surprised if this continues. Because I've seen this trend from back in the primaries. I don't think Trump goes screeching, scorching hot to ice cold like they want us to believe. I don't think that's happened. But they've tried to construct such a narrative, and they haven't been able to pull it off. The purpose of that narrative was to dispirit Trump supporters. And if they had just listened to me, they would have learned they can't do it that way. There isn't a single media operation or a Hillary Clinton aide or Hillary Clinton herself is going to be able to separate Trump voters from Trump. They just can't do it. If they don't understand that, if they're going to make any effort to understand the connection, I've said this so many times, I'm blue in the face, probably driving you crazy with it. But it stumps me still to see that the media, the Democrat political apparatus, refuses to learn, refuses to see that this is different. I mean, they know they've got an outsider in Trump, but that's where it stops. They refuse to try to look at this through any other prism but the prism they use in every presidential election, where every candidate and every issue comes from the establishment, for all intents and purposes. Anyway, I got a lot to squeeze in this hour. Mr. Snerdley said to me, the last caller was from a guy who had no problem with Trump's new so-called entitlement, his new child care family entitlement. No problem with it whatsoever. The guy said, hey, look, if they're going to be passing around federal money, if we got to come to grips with it, Russia, if they're going to give out federal money, isn't it about time we got some? Meaning us, we conservatives. And Snerdley said, I thought you would just jump on that guy and just destroy that guy. Well, one thing, I didn't have time. I wasn't even inclined to destroy the guy. I know exactly where he's coming from. I know who the Trump supporters are. I know how they think, and they're not thinking ideologically. We are so far beyond that on the Trump side of things, and I still don't know why that's so hard for people to understand. Maybe it is not hard to understand. Maybe they just don't accept it because the ideological root is what sustains them. But we'll get to the Mehmet Oz, the Dr. Oz stuff and Trump there and CNN here in just a second. Let's focus on this proposal that actually appears as an op-ed by Ivanka Trump in the Wall Street Journal today. And just give you a little flavor for it. The Trump plan will help working mothers. That's the headline to Ivanka's piece in the Wall Street Journal. And she starts it this way. For me, motherhood's a gift and a tremendous source of joy. Yet it's also the greatest predictor of wage inequality in our country. In 2014, single women without children earned 94 cents on a man's dollar. Married mothers made only 81 cents. Now, right there, I can hear the shouted objections. Not true! Not true! Whether you say 70 cents, 73 cents, it's been pretty much taken care of. There isn't this great disparity anymore. I hear you. Deal with it in just a second. Then Ivanka writes, we all agree that women should have equal pay for equal work, but that's not enough. The lack of quality, affordable child care is one of the biggest challenges facing American parents. The current federal policies created to benefit families are written more than 65 years ago when dual-income families were not the norm because they weren't necessary. I added that, by the way. She didn't write they weren't necessary. I added that. And they used to not be. Today, however, in about two-thirds of married couples, both spouses work. In addition, 70% of mothers with children under 18 work outside the home. So do 64% of moms with kids under age 6. The number of households led by single mothers has doubled in the past 30 years, and the majority of these women work in low-paying jobs without flexibility or benefits. My father, in his campaign for president, has proposed a plan to bring federal policies in line with the needs of today's working parents. And here we get to the policy proposal, the substance. Part 1 is a rewrite of the tax code, allowing working parents to deduct from their income taxes child care expenses for up to 4 children, as well as for elderly dependents, such as if Mamaw, Nanaw, and Pawpaw live with you. This will be capped, she says, at the average cost of child care in each family's state, and the wealthiest individuals will not be eligible for the deduction. Oh, she didn't say that, did she? I can hear the cat calls now. The benefit is structured to ensure that working and middle-class families see the largest reductions in their taxable incomes. Sturdily, quick question. How many people do you think know the difference in a tax deduction and a tax credit? I mean, just a little pop quiz question. I would say not many. I'd say not many do. I'll explain the difference here in just a second. Let me keep on here with her piece, because she's proposing tax deductions. A tax deduction lowers your taxable income. A tax credit, actually, it's like a credit anywhere else. Somebody gives you a gift card to the Apple store. Okay, let's say you've a $50 gift card. You've got a $50 credit with Apple. You can go in there, buy $50 of stuff, and give them the card, and whoever bought the card's paying for it, not you. Doesn't reduce your taxable income, but you do get it. It's in this way, the earned income tax credit. This is how people that don't pay taxes actually get a tax refund, because it's a tax credit. But they're proposing tax deductions. She writes to bring meaningful assistance to lower-income Americans who don't pay income tax. The Trump plan will offer rebates on child care spending through the Earned Income Tax Credit. This is why I asked how many people know the difference. Now, in a nation, she writes, she's continuing to write here, in a nation where almost two-thirds of mothers with children under age 6 are employed, child care is an undisputed work-related expense. In business, other such expenditures are tax deductible. This single reform under the Trump plan will effectively increase the take-home pay for tens of millions of American parents. But what if one parent staying at home to raise the children is the best option for a family? Well, this is the praiseworthy choice of many, yet there's zero value or recognition by our government for this hard and meaningful work. Under my father's proposal, stay-at-home parents will receive the same tax deduction as their working peers. Okay, so, but why is this a government concern in the first place? Why is there zero value or recognition by our government for the hard work of raising kids? Why is that a government concern, period? What does it matter whether the government recognizes it or not and supports it one way or another via the tax code? I thought we were about getting government out of our lives. What is all of this? Having government recognize the value of child rearing? Well, I'm just telling you, I hear the objections. Now, the plan's second part is the establishment of dependent care savings accounts. These are created to aid families in setting aside extra money to foster their children's development and to offset elder care for adult dependents. These accounts will operate like health savings accounts with tax-deductible contributions and tax-free appreciation year to year. When established for a minor, funds or money from a dependent care savings account can be applied to additional child care, after-school enrichment programs, and school tuition. Now, to help lower-income parents, the government will match half of the first $1,000 deposited each year. Balances in a dependent care savings account will roll over from year to year so that a substantial amount of money can be accrued over time. The third part of the plan will address the federal regulations that currently discourage informal child care, such as a mom watching her own kids and a few others from the neighborhood in her home. Arrangements such as these are not now given fair consideration by our federal bureaucracy, which is biased in favor of institutional care. We need to create a dynamic marketplace to offer solutions and give parents greater freedom of choice. Now, let me tell you what this is about, because this one could skate by you. You ever heard of the Smart Start program? You know what it is? The Smart Start program is, look, just to make this brief, it is a quasi, a kind of like Head Start or early daycare run by the federal government. And the Smart Start program has actually made sure that there isn't any competition in child care. What I think Ivanka is talking about here is the circumstance where you have a mother at home watching her own kids and helping out other friends of hers, other people in the neighborhood, by watching their kids while other moms are at work. And this is essentially what the Smart Start program does. You deposit your kid at the Smart Start location, you go about your day. The government has control of your kids. The government's educating them. The government is inculcating them. The government's doing this. And it's portrayed as a benefit. Her point is that there are a lot of mothers doing the same thing, equivalent of doing it in the private sector, but not being compensated. And they can't effectively be compensated because who can compete with the federal government, a program like Smart Start? Smart Start does not get any kid ahead. Head Start doesn't get any kid ahead. None of these government child care programs do anything but create a bunch of little liberals, future liberals running around. So, what to make of this? I'm like a lot of people, got mixed reactions to this. Politically, this is why I started by saying there's ideology and there's politics. I have to admit that politically, at this stage of our country's existence, where we are, let me ask you point blank. Do you think the argument over big versus small government is still going on? Or do you think it's over? And if you think it's over, who won? How many people do you know whose vote is predicated largely or maybe totally on which candidate swears to get government out of as much of life as possible? And who is that candidate? I would maintain to you that in this cycle, We have two candidates representing two major parties, neither of which is conservative. I don't think the Republican Party is conservative. Maybe it is if compared to the Democrats. Certainly it would be. But if you are defining conservatism honestly and strictly, we don't have a conservative political party. We have two candidates representing two major parties, neither of which is conservative. The parties or the nominees. Safe to assume. So if you look at Trump's plan for child care, maternity leave, elderly care, you can sit there and lament all day. Oh, gosh, see, this is exactly why we needed Cruz. We wouldn't even be messy. If it were Cruz, we wouldn't have to wade through all this maybe, if, or what stuff. We just have a 10% flat tax, put everybody under it, and virtually get rid of all deductions and just end the government paying people to do this and not paying people to do that. But we don't have that. Ted Cruz didn't win. We have what we have. And the politics of this right now, my assessment is for Trump. I know, I see the clock. I think the politics and the impact for Trump is pure gold right now. But that's... Look, bottom line, I am the last person on earth who wants any expansion of the government. But I am also the first person on earth to understand that we have a mess in child care because of government and because of the left. We have a mess. As I read through Ivanka's piece, it seems to me that there's more weight given to lowering taxes, tax deductions for child and elder care. Seems like that's every bit as important in her plan and Trump's plan as is the expansion of government. There's another way of looking at this too, folks. In looking at Trump's plan for child care and maternity leave and elderly care, conservatives can lament that it's not the Ted Cruz plan. Oh, my God, see if Cruz, we'd have a 10% flat tax and it'd be done and there wouldn't be any of this mess. You can look at it that way as, oh, what if? Or you can look at the Trump plan and describe what it does and compare it to Hillary's, assuming she presents one after recovering from what may be the mildest case of pneumonia in history. And that seems to me what the comparison needs to be. You can't, other than an intellectual exercise, you can't say, oh, what could have been? Oh, how bad? Oh, I told you. I know there's a whole bunch of I told you so's out there. But I think politically, you wait. I think just for people that are not ideological, which is a hell of a lot of people in this country, I think they're going to respond so positively to this, and it's going to disappoint a lot of people. You're going, oh, my God, do people not even understand the whole concept of big government destroying? They don't, folks. They don't look at it the way you and I do in that regard. Now, I have even more on this, but I got another stoppage here that I can't do anything about, so just hang in there. We'll wrap this up and move on when we get back. By the way, folks, there's a new poll out that I'm sorry, I have to tell you that, and I just know the basics here. I haven't had a chance to get into it. But to me, this is fabulous news. It's something I have been hoping to see for I can't tell you how long. Whites and Christians are leaving the Democrat Party. And that's all I know at the moment. I'm going to dig deeper into this. But I can't tell you how I have been hoping that's a sign to me that we are alive and kicking here. I mean, one of the greatest fears that I've had is that the Democrat Party, all these people in it have bought hook, line, and sinker everything the Democrat Party is out there promoting and selling. All this radical tear up the culture stuff, it's really been concerning me. And to see that whites and Christians are leaving the Democrat Party, it's a healthy sign. Until I get any more detail of it, I don't have any more for you on it. I went back to this Trump plan here because it's dicey. Because, as I say, I'm the last person on earth who wants any expansion of government. But I'll also tell you this. All of these government-run Head Start, Smart Start, all these programs where they take toddlers and they put them into government-run programs and so forth, totally state and federal-supported government programs. There's billions of dollars spent on this stuff every year, and they end up indoctrinating babies, essentially. And there isn't any consistent evidence that this housing of children has any effect on their futures in school. And the whole point here is to get them head started so that they start learning sooner in school. And it's like anything else government does. When government actually takes over and runs something like Flint, Michigan, or Detroit, you want to get out. So I have huge problems with all of these Head Start programs. The Trump plan specifically addresses them and has a conversion for converting them to, or plan for converting them to private sectors where the same money being spent on the federally run programs would be spent on these neighborhood programs run by individual Americans. Another thing Trump could say, he could say he's going to pay for this by eliminating welfare payments to illegal aliens, illegal immigrants. There's any number of ways of pitching this as revenue neutral. If he wants to. The allowances for tax break for caring for elderly people, actual firsthand experience here, that could be a blessing to a lot of people. And I'll tell you why. It's not just abortion where the left seeks to eliminate life. It's at the elderly end of the spectrum as well. And in large part, people go along with it because you know what the cost is. You know what medical costs are. The vast majority of any individual's medical expenses occur in late life where there isn't any hope for a cure, this kind of thing. And families can't afford it. They can't get insurance for it. It's an absolute mess. And the government, once again, has come in and jacked around in all of this. And like most everything else the government tries to run, I'm not talking about paying for, but the actual things they run. They don't run anything well by definition. One other aspect of Trump's proposal here. You could also say that what it is a manipulation of the tax code, a manipulation of existing programs to the benefit of people who at present do not benefit. This is why I think politically this thing's going to be a home run. I think you're going to have a lot of people who have concluded that the government is involved. The argument over small government, non-existent government, they're way beyond that. They're looking at who the government's helping and who isn't being helped. And in large measure, they don't think that people violating the law ought to be the beneficiaries of government support to the point of being totally provided for. So with the manipulation of the tax code and existing programs and the creation of these savings accounts, which, by the way, the savings account, let me tell you something. I don't care if it's a school voucher program or it's a health care savings account or now this savings account. Are those not the hallmarks of every conservative think tank you have ever heard of? Are those things not the exact proposals we get from conservative think tanks all over the place? Well, no, my point is that all of a sudden now it's become a government entitlement. When Trump proposes it, people are calling it an entitlement, an expansion of government. But when certain other people propose these savings accounts, why, that's reform. Why, that's conservative values being commingled with existing programs and blah, blah. So it just depends on who's doing the judging here. And I think that's always kind of been in the weeds anyway, to try to define conservatism for average, ordinary people as a school voucher plan, which I love the school voucher plan. And by the way, so do people who benefit from them. But a lot of this has occurred to the benefit of the kind of thinking comes out of think tanks, which is okay, fine. I don't want to get into a fight with those people. My only point here is that Trump has proposed one of his own savings accounts, and people are calling it an entitlement, whereas the same people calling it an entitlement propose their own savings accounts, and nobody calls it an entitlement. Am I right or am I wrong about this? I mean, the health care savings account, it's a great idea. Nobody called it an entitlement, but they would if Trump proposed it because they want to try to discredit it. Well, they do work. The health care savings account works. The school voucher plans work. Any of these other, the health care savings account is very simple. You take the amount of money we spend on you anyway for health care, and we give it to you. And we put it in a savings, and then you buy your own treatment. You buy your insurance, you buy your treatment. The theory is when you're using your money, and it's a finite amount of money in your account, you're going to shop. You're going to try to find the best deal, even if it's health care, because you don't want to spend all that, because you get to keep what's left over. That's the other part of the deal. You get to keep it. It rolls over. So you shop around. This theoretically introduces competition where none exists now. This, in theory, introduces market forces to a circumstance, healthcare, which is totally dominated by government and health insurance companies. It is a great idea. Totally great idea. It's called conservative. Great conservative idea when it's proposed by those people. When Trump proposes his, all of a sudden it's becoming an entitlement and an expansion of government and so forth. It just depends on who's describing it and whether they support Trump or don't, in large measure. But these approaches, Trump's approach here on the savings account side has always, always, always been called conservative, is my point. But now there are some people who want to say it isn't. No, I'm just observing. Pure and simple, just observing. Let's see. No, let me take a break. I was going to try to squeeze a call in here that just set me behind. We'll take a break. We'll come back. Do have some people that want to weigh in on this, so we'll do that when we get back. No. I am fully aware. You can't get any of this stuff past me. I am fully aware. There's all kinds of Republicans and conservatives reacting to this Trump proposal. And they're practically shouting it. They don't want to pay for other people's daycare. When is this going to stop? Why are we just transferring who gets paid? When is this going to stop? It's not the job of the government to pay for my health care, for your children's health care, your child rearing. That's your responsibility. Why the hell do I have to pay for it? I hear all of that. Well, here's the sad reality. We have been paying for other people's child care for decades now. We've been doing worse than that. We've been doing more than that. We've been paying some people to have kids. We've been paying other people not to have them. We have been raising kids. The federal government has become the father in many families, and this has been going on for decades now. And it's nothing more than federal regulated indoctrination. There's a reality in our world today, and it is parents have to work, those that can find jobs. And the odds are both of them are going to. And I happen to support the whole concept of strong families and encouraging work. These are not easy questions, but for people ideologically inclined. But I'm telling you, I think Trump supporters here are going to just embrace this out the wazoo, to the frustration of countless Republicans and conservatives who have devoted their lives to the whole concept of educating people how government doing all this kind of stuff is bad, no matter who gets the benefit. Anyway, here is, this is Lana in St. Augustine, Florida. It's great to have you. I'm glad you waited. I know you want to weigh in on this.
Hi, Mr. Limbaugh. Long-time listener, first-time caller, and it's an honor to speak with you.
Thank you very much.
I just think I cannot believe the hypocrisy of these Republicans that are supposedly conservative. It doesn't seem to bother them that the government pays millions of dollars for illegal immigrants that they're resettling all these refugees, and Mr. Obama wants to bring more in. What is wrong with doing something that is going to make America better? And supporting the family definitely is going to make Americans better. Yeah. And that is why I'm so disgusted with those Republicans.
Okay, I hear you. So we have all these minors coming in from Central America for 2 years now. They're being brought in. They're being transported around the country, deposited in various people's homes. The government's paying for all this. And very little opposition to it do we hear from Republicans, saying they certainly aren't screaming at it. They're certainly not screaming about the evils of big government and so forth. But the Trump plan comes along and they come alive. And you're hearing that. So it's come down to this. This is what these people are going to think. And you can either accept this or not. They're going to look at the government is paying. The government's supporting, paying, underwriting, whatever, a whole bunch of people, many of whom are not even American citizens. And so somebody comes along and proposes that actual citizens be helped with this money and all hell breaks loose. Sorry. Where do I get to the voting booth to vote for Mr. Trump? That's how they're reacting to this. It's okay. You want to get mad at Trump? Try getting mad at the Democrats for the past 10 years then. That's what they're saying. I hear them. Here's one more, I think. Joe in Queens. Joe, great to have you on the program. How you doing?
Hey, Rush. Great job, buddy. Hey, listen, I think Trump hit it out of the park last night. I think he beat Hillary to the punch with whatever lie that she was going to come up with in regards to something like this. And what is wrong with choking the government from money that they blow foolishly anyway?
What do you mean choking the government?
Well, if they're saying that I could use money that normally would get taxed for child care and write that right off the top, that is conservative, because I'm choking the government away from money that I would have to pay to them anyway, and then still have to do child care.
Right.
I had a situation where my wife doesn't work. She was involved in a very bad accident. I had to send my kid to a daycare type facility. It cost me $400 a month after tax money. Now, I wasn't able to write that off previously because they said my wife didn't work. Well, she couldn't work. She was in the hospital. So how could she have worked? So I think his plan was great. I think the presentation was phenomenal with his,
that's why
daughter.
My instincts are that politically for Trump this has been it's going to be a big hit. But there are going to be others looking at it ideologically who are going to say, we told you so, we told you this guy wasn't who you thought he was. And they're going to be trying to make that case for a host of reasons, most of which you know. Joe, I appreciate the call. A cynical Trump supporter might say that they would be willing to trade government-subsidized child care and a hell of a lot more for secure borders and a wall and no amnesty. What do you think about that? You think they would go for that? Hey, I'll give you back this child care money. If you shut down illegal immigration, you build the wall, end this talk of amnesty. As I'm telling you, this is the root of all of this, folks. All this money being spent, and the effort is very public, the compassion being extended to people that are not legal citizens against those who are, and the criticism of American citizens, I think establishment types still haven't figured out what a sore spot all that is. We will continue this tomorrow, my friends. Many things that we still have to squeeze in. Thanks so much for being with us today, as is always the case. See you, Wendy. You be back tomorrow, too? All right, we'll see you then. And in the meantime, my friends, hang in there because it's only 21 hours. We'll be right back here. As always, thank you ever so much for being with us again today.